Hey guys, this is Gary Swafford, and I am continuing with my video that had to end abruptly earlier because I had a coughing fit at the very end that I couldn't really control, so I had to stop. I wasn't done. I was only about, I don't know, 4 or 5 minutes from being done, but I had to cut it short, and so we're going to try to finish up. I've got about, and I'm talking about my books and where we are in seeking publication, my Facebook movie groups, Movie Magic Mesmerized Me, and Lord Ardrick and the Throne of Fire, which is the name of the first volume of my Animal Kingdom fables. And so, next question. Okay, you should probably watch part one before you go to this because it's about 22 minutes. It was going to be about 25-30 minutes long, and I just couldn't control the coughing fit I had, which is much better now. Someone says, what is, so Lord Ardrick is being made into two books, a two-parter. Lord Ardrick and Throne of Fire is the name of the first volume. What is the name of the second volume? Good question. Okay, yeah, we've got to have a name for it, right? The tentative title of the second volume is Gates of New Eden. Looks like it's going to be at least 4 books now, possibly 5. And that's going to be the title of one of the books at least, and I'm pretty sure it's going to be the next one, unless, as I'm working on it, I think of what more appropriate title for. I like that title. I'm not 100% so that it's the correct title for the second volume, but it will be used somewhere in the series. First book is pretty easy to make into 2 books because I talked about this earlier, I believe, but right in the middle there's kind of a natural point where you could break the book into 2, with just a little bit of tweaking and rewriting. The second book in the series that I wrote, both books were written some years ago, and I've worked on them over the years, but the second book, which is called Last of Their Kind, that will need to be broken into 2 as well, because they're both very long volumes, and as we talked about, these long volumes from unknown authors just don't move. They don't go anywhere. They won't even be looked at. That one I think will take a little bit more rewriting. It's not impossible, not a monumental task, but it will take a little bit more doing to make it into 2 books. So, never really talked about that one very much, but interesting fact I'll share now. The first book that I wrote in this series was not Lord Ardrick and the Throne of Fire. The first book that I wrote was called Last of Their Kind, The Animal Kingdom Fables. It was a standalone book. And I wrote this book, and I always write in longhand. I've got this stack of notebooks, which I showed in the last video. And as I was rewriting it, as I was typing it up in the computer, this computer, was well into it and almost done, it occurred to me that this was the second book in a series. It was really the middle of something. It wasn't the first of something. There was a story that, a prelude to this story, and there's a story after it. So I thought, and whenever an author realizes something like that, that's an oh my God moment. You realize it really does need to be done. It should be done. But, it's a monumental task. And so that's when I went back and wrote Lord Ardrick and the Throne of Fire, which is actually the second book that I wrote, not the first. Even though it will be the first book that comes out if these books ever see the light of day. Interesting fact that I don't think I've ever shared before. So, anyway. Where did you get your love of reading from? Did other people in your family read a lot? A family, yeah, I come from a family who are pretty big readers. We have very diverse taste in reading. Some are more geared toward fiction, some more toward nonfiction. different kinds of genres that we like, but my love of reading, I always read. My grandfather taught me how to read when I was very small. I knew the alphabet and how to read before I started school, and I learned to read from sitting next to my grandfather on the couch or in the rocking chair, and him reading me the funnies from the newspaper. And he was teaching me the alphabet, and he would make me read the comics back to him. And he would say, "What is this word? How do you say that? What does this mean? What's this letter?" We kind of had to work it. We read it first, just for fun. Then he would have me read it back to him, and then we would kind of go over it and over it and over it. And he was giving me the alphabet, so that's where I learned how to read. Basically, was from the funny pages, we used to call them. This was Dick Tracy, this was Blondie, this was Nancy. It's just and there used to be these great serial adventure comic strips that I just really loved. Like Terry and the Pirates and Flash Gordon, Mandrake the Magician, the Phantom, and I think that there may be, those aren't syndicated in my region and haven't been for many, many years. I think there may be versions of those out there now, but somebody can comment about it, but I haven't seen those in newspapers in many, many, many years, decades in fact. But learned to read in the comic books, and so I started reading comic books. And then I started reading storybooks. I was one of those kids who had got the Happy Hollisters in the mail, Happy Hollisters, and read a lot of books from the school library. A lot of children's storybooks I remember, and Alice in Wonderland was a big seismic moment in my childhood reading. The Wizard of Oz. When I was 10 years old, and I write about this in my remember if I talked about it. I'm writing a memoir of my childhood. It's just kind of like my earliest memory, like 3 or 4, up until about 12 years old, on the cusp of adolescence. And one of the chapters is when I had my first birthday party when I was 10 years old, and my grandfather gave me a set of Mark Twain. And this was Tom Sawyer, Huckleberry Finn, and I think Life on the Mississippi was the third one. I've forgotten what the third one was. But I read these books and I was very intrigued. And I had read like a children's version, like a shortened version of Tom Sawyer and Huckleberry Finn. But then reading the books in full was just really an incredible experience for me. Reading was still entertaining. It was still fun. But it was also something else, It was something that could be more serious, and it sort of opened up the world for me in a way. And that's literally like 10th birthday, grandfather, Mark Twain, and I went from there with my reading of love. It's just expanded and grows, and it's gone on all these many, many, many years later. Grandfather was a big reader he was a minister. He was a big reader of the Bible and religious texts. I have some of his very old books. He would always put his name in the books and sometimes the date whenever he got them. He was a big reader of Earl Stanley Gardner's Perry Mason books. There'd always be these old paperbacks, lying around the house. Rex Stout's Nero Wolfe books were very popular with him. He always had one of those reading on paperbacks. Louis L'Amour. I have actually become a fan of Rex Stout and Earl Stanley Gardner, the Perry Mason, and the Nero Wolfe books. I've never really got into Louis L'Amour, and I've, thanks to eBay, and used bookstores, I've been actually able to collect a lot of the same vintage paperbacks that my grandfather used to read. A lot of that, and I have a collection of them. I'll do a video sometime showing these really old paperback books, so it's just a very affectionate thing. How did you become friends with Anne Rice? People ask me this occasionally. I read Anne Rice when I was a teenager in the 70s, Interview with a Vampire. I've read her over the years. The first time I wrote her a letter was about the time of when The Mummy and The Witching Hour came out. This is when she moved back to New Orleans, and I wrote her this long letter about what a fan I was, and I'd been a fan for a long time. And I actually got it's kind of like a postcard like picture of her. It had her dog Mojo on it, and a very nice note on the back saying, if you're ever in New Orleans, stop by First Street. Her house is on 1239 First Street, New Orleans. And I'm like, sure, I'm going to go to New Orleans. But, and then Anne had a phone line. Some of you may remember she had a public phone line that you could call and listen to a message, and she would talk about her books, she would talk about movies, she would talk about the politics of the day. This was the early and mid 90s, and I don't know exactly how long it went, but it was several years. And you could leave a brief message. And I must have called this line like 1,000 times and left a lot of messages. And gradually, the staff got to know me. She got to know me. I think that's really when I entered her consciousness for the first time. And we began to have some exchange. I would send something there. Anne sent me something. She'd send me some of the T-shirts and the items and novelties and books. I started getting signed books in the 90s. And then in 2001, 2002, Anne published Blood Canticle, and there was a big, I won't spend too much time on it, but there was a big brouhaha on Amazon where some people had left some ugly reviews, and Anne responded, and I left a response, and saying, Anne, the book's fantastic, and these people, they feed on this kind of thing, the dogs bark, but the caravan moves on, something like that, and I don't remember how she got she sent me, was it a private message or something, but I got an email from her. I think they had they had my email, the staff had my email address, and I got this long email, and basically she was like, Gary, you're wonderful, you're so enthusiastic, you're so supportive, you're so upbeat, let's be friends. Basically, it was just great. And she's like, here's the private phone number, here's the address, here's the staff phone number, here's my private email. And Anne has a public email where anybody can send her an email. It's Anne O'Brien Rice at gmail.com. She puts it out there. It's on her Facebook. It's on her website. She also has a private email, and it's the coolest email address, which I'm not going to tell what it is, and I don't think she uses it much anymore, but it's the coolest email address in the world. And maybe someday, we can say what it is, but, I just thought that was great. And so it's gone from there. It's all about love of her work, and we've been very close. I've seen her at numerous signings. I went to First Street a couple of times. There was a Christmas party at her house in La Jolla, California. We email constantly, every day, almost every day, sometimes a few times a day. So, it's just, it's really like a dream come true. She's just a very blessed and treasured friend. I refer to her as my little sister, and I just treasure and value that friendship. Most important friendship of my life. And I remember I called the phone line that I talked about. I don't know why I'm flashing on this. I think the phone number was 504-522-8634. Or was it 8433? I believe it was 504-522-8634. I can't believe I remember that. But, I knew it automatically, and I would just call it, It's just like the staff was like, it was really funny, like some of the messages I got. Okay, a couple of more questions. Okay, on the Facebook groups, Movie Magic Mesmerize Me. What was your best day on Movie Magic Mesmerize Me? What was your worst day? Wow. Wow, that's some question. There's been lots of best days on Movie Magic Mesmerizing Me. Every day is kind of a best day, really. We really have. We really have, but we're very careful about who we let in the group. The group is monitored very carefully, so we don't really have a lot of flamethrowers. We don't have a lot of bad incidents or anything. So every day is very good. I do remember, like, I started the group in August of 2012, and about 5 to 9 months after that, I remember, like, this has been like maybe January of 2013 to the spring, summer of 2013. We were probably between, I don't know, 1,100 to 1,600 members. And it was kind of like everybody sort of knew everybody, and it was like a community, and it was like a meeting place. And there's still a quality of that, but we're much bigger now. We're thousands of members, but we were still small enough to where, people would meet. People knew each other. A lot of us became friends on Facebook, and I've made some just really beloved friends via Movie Magic Mesmerizing Me. It's very gratifying for people to tell me I met my best friend on this group, that I really treasure. And I hear that a lot. A lot of people tell me, I get private messages about how much the group means to them, and they enjoy going there every day. Learning things, sharing things, getting information. That's very gratifying. It's a very beautiful thing to hear. So, haven't been any. There's all the days are good. Our best day, the worst day, I would have to say honestly, was not long ago. I think it was in September or August that we lost our dear friend, and I used to call her the First Lady of M4, Movie Magic Mesmerizing Me, Sharon Walker. And I knew that Sharon had been ill. She didn't really talk about it very much. Sharon was like not one to really give a whole lot of personal information, intimate information about herself. And she was such a classy person, such a beautiful lady, and very upbeat and positive, very lovely lady. And I had had some private communication with Sharon, and I knew that she was dealing with some serious illnesses. And she had just come out of the hospital, and, there that last week, and then a couple of days later, it seemed like she was gone. And I remember my good friend April Sokol sent me a private message that had I heard about Sharon, and I'm like, I hadn't. So I go to Sharon's page, and her son had the message there about, they'd lost their mother, and I just thought, I've got to share this. This is going to be difficult, but I owe it to Sharon. And I mean, everybody loves Sharon. Sharon was on the page quite a bit. She was a constant presence. She was always, like I said, she was a class act, deeply, deeply missed friend. And so I had to make an announcement and talk about Sharon and what had happened and how much she meant to us. So that was the worst day on M4, definitely. Having to share the news of Sharon Walker's death. Okay, last question, and this has gone on. Oh my goodness, this one's almost 20 minutes itself. Alrighty. Advice on running a Facebook group. Okay, good question. What I'd really hoped when I started my groups was especially Movie Magic Mesmerized Me. Lord Audric, I'll always have to be a constant presence on that, but I was really hoping that it would become such an involved, active group with a lot of participants, which we have, that, it could go on without me. If I went days, weeks, without participating, that, other people would post about films, and, and I could kind of dip in here and there. I don't know if we're quite there. We may never be. It may be that I am the engine that kind of keeps things going, but there have been times when I lost my cat last month. I had to be out for several days, and, the group went along just fine. But there's lots of people who contribute all day long, sometimes many times a day. And we have members from all over the world. And we have some wonderful handful of people who are constants on the page and just invaluable contributors and posters and friends, I would say, be a constant presence on your page. Keep it active, keep it going, do things to keep people interested, and also pick administrators. Be very careful in your administrators that you pick to help with your groups. People you know very well who are, tested and tried and true, and to be intelligent and fair-minded to help you with your group. Pick people who will outshine you. That's what I try to do. We have Aaron Newworth, who's just like an incredible movie reviewer. We have Christopher Hill. We have my dear friend Corinne. We have Mark Holman. There's a couple of Jordan Rath, Rath Reviews, and he's an author, and Robert James. We're an embarrassment of riches, like in our administrators on the group. I consider the administrators equals. Maybe if it came down to it, I would have the deciding vote on something if it had to be. That's never been the case, so I know they're there to take care of it. It's in good hands, the times that I'm not there. So anyway, that's my advice. Be a constant presence on your group. Keep the groups true to itself, its own guidelines, and pick fantastic administrators to help you with the group. So anyway, 2 videos, both of them overlong. That's where we are in my books. That's where we are in my Facebook groups, guys. So thanks a lot for all of you for hanging in there and watching this. And Lord Audric and the Throne of Fire, Animal Kingdom Fables, Volume 1, and Gates of New Eden, Animal Kingdom Fables, Volume 2, hopefully coming in the not-too-distant future. We'll see. So thanks a lot for your support and encouragement and great messages and questions, and sorry it took me so long to get to this video. And everyone have a wonderful holiday. Whatever it is that you observe, have a fantastic Hanukkah, Christmas, New Year's, Kwanzaa, or if you don't do anything, just have a really great end of the year, New Year, and take good care. Bye-bye.